Alright, so here's a good look at some of that excessive paint on the midsole. I heard some people saying that it's pretty easy to wash off, so I'm going to go give it a scrub for a second and see how it looks afterwards. Alright, so I scrubbed it for about 10 seconds and it came off quite easily. I didn't do the whole shoe, so it's still pretty heavy back here, but for time's sake I just wanted to do a little portion of it, and I think you can probably tell it was way heavier on there before than what it is now. I will say it does seem like it'll still have kind of like an orange hue to it even if you do wash it off. If that's enough to turn you off, then you probably do want to stay away from these. Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's your old pal Mr. Butter coming back at you. Today I want to get into a pair of kicks that I actually had an offer up on GOAT for. To my surprise, these shock dropped on the sneakers app and I was able to get my personal size for retail. If you're into kicks and you feel like hanging out, then hit that subscribe button. Let's take a look at these Maniére Jordan Airships. Alright, so to start off, we've got a box that looks a lot like a Jordan 1 box. It matches the shoes, it's black and white, and this has a texture all over it that is actually made up of the Maniére A. I don't know if you can see that on camera. It's really not even easy to see whenever you're looking at it in person, but it's really neat. It's got a cool texture all over it. At first glance, you wouldn't even notice it, and actually I didn't even notice it until I had them in hand. The tag reads Jordan Airship PESP. The colors are Summit White and Black. I got a size 10.5. and the retail price on these was $140 US. I had an offer standing for these. I think my offer was like $155 or $160. All of a sudden these dropped on the sneakers app one day out of the blue. It was a legit shock drop. I don't know if anybody knew that they were coming. I thought that I missed out on my chance to get them for retail, so I had that offer up on GOAT like I do a lot of times. I had to hurry up and go and cancel that offer on GOAT. Obviously, I was much happier to pay retail for a shoe instead of paying a little bit over retail. Prices are still reasonable on these, and there's still a lot of size sitting on the sneakers app. So if you're interested in this shoe, then you might want to check them out. They came with this Airship booklet, which I always like. We got Maniére branded paper inside of the box as well. It's got all those A's all over it. So enough with the packaging. Here's a look at the shoes. I love this pair. I think people are sleeping on these heavily, and one of the big reasons that I think people are passing is because it's got that paint on the midsole. I actually made a short where I asked people if they thought that that painted midsole ruined the shoe. I've seen multiple comments saying that it washes off easily. After I'm done this review, I might actually take one of these inside and try to scrub it to see if it does actually come off, because I saw a lot of people say that they loved the shoe but they hated that aged look or that distressed look, and I can see both sides of it. I don't mind it. It actually came with these laces that match that distressed look, and I went ahead and threw them in there. These laces have that same kind of clay color on them, and they're just made to look like they've been distressed. It's almost like a rust color or something too. But I just thought the laces were pretty cool. I thought it was unique, so I went ahead and threw those laces in. After I'm done this review, I'll go in and see if I can actually clean some of that paint off, because in some areas it is kind of thick on my shoe. Not the whole thing, and like I said, I don't even mind it, but I am interested in seeing how easily that cleans up. For a lot of people, if it didn't have that paint on the midsole, I think they probably would have been quicker to jump on these. Obviously, whenever you look at this shoe, it does remind you of a Jordan 1. This was the shoe that the Jordan 1 kind of was built off of. It's almost like this should be the Jordan 1 and then the Jordan 1 be the Jordan 2. It just has a really classic look overall, a nice retro style. These materials are really, really nice, and what made me really want these was I ordered the gray and white pair of these, and I ordered them from a boutique. I think it's called Hush Life Boutique, and they sent me the wrong size. I reached out to them to see if they would exchange them for the right size, and then they didn't have my size anymore. So I ended up giving the wrong size that they sent me to my nephew, and he's been wearing them a lot. But I was really impressed with that pair because the materials were really good and the style is just on point. It's just something different than your standard Jordan 1, but it still has that retro style. And I just think they're really easy to wear. I've actually been wearing these a good bit. If you've seen some of my shorts and that sort of thing, then you've probably seen me with them on feet. I really like this pair. It is one of my favorite recent pickups. And if you're interested in the shoe and that midsole is, you know, holding you back, then maybe you'll change your mind if I'm able to wash it off pretty easily. Like I said, these were spare laces that came with it, and I threw them in. It came with these white laces already in there, and then it had a spare set of black laces with it, and it also had this Maniére hang tag or keychain, whatever you want to call it. But getting into the review, we've got a black outsole. It's got a worn look to it already, and it's very similar to a Jordan 1 tread pattern. It actually reminds me of a Jordan 1 85 tread pattern because the pivot point is a little bit smaller, and I think it probably is closer to a Jordan 1 85 tread pattern as opposed to just a regular modern day Jordan 1 tread pattern. But it's got Nike branding at the midfoot, and it's got that pivot point in the front. We've got this aged effect on the midsole. Some people don't mind it. Some people absolutely hate it. I'm kind of indifferent to it. I do think that it goes with the style of the shoe pretty well, but I can understand why people don't like it because in some spots it's way darker than others. So it does kind of look a little bit sloppy in some areas. Like on this shoe, it's really dark here in this spot. Then the whole base of the upper of the shoe is this really, really nice leather. Like I said, I've already been wearing these a good bit, and this leather is so soft. It's a summit white, so it's not a bright white. It almost has just a little tint of gray to it, and I really, really like that. But I don't know if you can see at home the little ripples that you get, but this shoe is so soft, and the quality of this leather is really top shelf. I'm a big fan of the materials that they used. On some of these cut edges of leather, it's got a rust color, and that kind of matches this paint that they have on the midsole, but it also reminds me of some of my Forum 84s. They have those yellow edges on the leather too. Similar to Jordan 1 highs, we have perforations there on the toe box. One thing that I like about these Airships compared to the Jordans is if you look underneath the laces here at the base, there's actually a piece of elastic that goes down in the eye stays. And it really helps these things like stay really tight and secure to your feet. I think these are really, really comfortable. On top of that elastic that really helps them stay snug on your feet, I think the insole of these is really comfortable, but I'll pull that out and show you here in a second. The tongue is thin. It feels just like a Jordan tongue. It almost looks orange, and I think that's because that's the color of the foam inside of the tongue. The tag has Nike Air and Maniére branding on it. And that's another thing that I really like about these is just that the branding isn't over the top. Like, you might not even realize that this is a collab unless you look at them up close. On the back of the left shoe, there's an A for Maniére. And on the back of the right shoe, it says Nike Air up there in that nubuck material. And while we're talking about that black material, that's what we have for the swoosh on the side as well. And that, once again, is a really high quality material. It feels really nice and it just looks phenomenal. But we have that black nubuck here for the Nike swooshes as well as up around the collar. And I just really like that material. Once again, I don't know if you can see the ripples and everything when you push in on that, but that feels like a really natural material, and it almost has a distressed look to it, but I just really love the quality that they gave us on this. Similar to the Jordan 1 High 85s, you get the size right here on the inside of the sock liner, and I think that's pretty cool. You probably can't tell on camera, but there's a texture for the sock liner, And once again, it just consists of all those tiny little A's. You probably can't see that on camera, but that's what the sock liner is. And we also have that texture down on the insole as well. It might be easier to see that texture on this insole. That's the same texture that we have for the sock liner. It's just got a whole bunch of tiny little A's on it. And then at the heel, you have an embroidered on Jumpman, and it says 365. I'm not really good at knowing what the insoles are made of. I don't know if this is polyurethane or not, but it feels like it's really good quality. I've worn these probably 3 or 4 times, and each time I've had them on feet for a couple hours, and these insoles are very, very comfortable. It feels like they really gave us quality on this one. I'm going to see if I can wash off some of that excessive paint that we have on the midsole, and I'll give you like a before and after look. All right, so here's a good look at some of that excessive paint on the midsole. I heard some people saying that it's pretty easy to wash off, so I'm going to go give it a scrub for a second and see how it looks afterwards. So I scrubbed it for about 10 seconds and it came off quite easily. I didn't do the whole shoe, so it's still pretty heavy back here, but for time's sake, I just wanted to do a little portion of it, and I think you can probably tell it was way heavier on there before than what it is now. I will say it does seem like it'll still have kind of like an orange hue to it, even if you do wash it off. But if that's enough to turn you off, then you probably do want to stay away from these. I think they look good as they are, so I'm not going to worry about cleaning the rest of it off. This is just an example to show you it can be done. It's definitely not permanent, and it's not that difficult to get it off of there. I only used some hand soap and a little bit of water, and it came off pretty easily. So I would imagine if you use some of that acetone or something, then it'll probably get off of there pretty easy. I appreciate you all watching. Let me know what you all think about these, and I'll catch you on the next one.